Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Sprinklebeard, and today we are going to go over the champions during this upcoming weekend event that is going to happen. There's 5 champions that are being offered in the times 10. This is something that I want to cover because everybody is different in terms of what they need on their accounts, and even in my own guild, there's players who are like, oh, there's these champions, and I don't think any of them are special. It does depend on, what you have, right? If you have things like Aracha, Salazar, and Cerberus, it's going to be easy for you to be like, no, I don't need Voroth. However, I do want to do like a 5-minute cover of each of the champions so that for newer players, they can kind of better understand what they would be getting themselves into going for things this weekend. So first off, we're going to start off with our defenders, and our first one is Aveline. Aveline is a Northerner and a Watcher. So what's good about this is that she's part of 2 different factions, and she is a tank. Specifically, she has high block. In her kit is, as you promote her, she will be able to block an additional target. So she can block 4 enemies, not your typical 3. So very useful there. And then she specifically is about stacking defense permanently. Now, her stats at 6-star are a bit less, but that's because as you give her dust, you're going to be gaining an extra 20% defense in total. So even though this defensive rating is a little on the lower side compared to other champions, the fact that you have a free 20% defense just in your skills is going to be helpful. The fact that you can block 4 units is helpful. Her ultimate is an AoE stun, so there is very good things in her kit. Is she somebody that I want? No, I have a legendary tank. I have things like Olag on my account, and Olag for me does what I want from a tank consistently. So right now he is still my go-to. I just did 6-star Broke here, who is my legendary tank. So for that reason, she's not somebody that I'm super interested in. However, again, her being a Northerner and a Watcher, she does have good usage. And then the fact that she can block up to 4 units, I think she's a very worthwhile tank if you get her. Next, we have one of my favorite champions. He is reviewed on this channel. So if you are interested in seeing a very in-depth review of the Northerner Voroth, go to my channel. I will try to put a link in the description for that specific video. Voroth is this amazing fighter. He's got a very high attack stat for the epics. For a lot of the epics, they go from like anywhere from like 3,500 to like 4,000 kind of typically. He skyrockets at 5,100. Very similar to Wrath in this regards. He's an Ice Viking. Now, I'm not super into the Viking motif. However, I love the fact that he has this gigantic axe. And then when he ultimates, he pulls out a second axe and then gains a 800 attack speed steroid, which is absolutely bonkers. It is so freaking fast. That is not even the reason I like him. The reason that I like him so much, he has a counter attack that is an AoE. So his basic attack is just attacking once, and then he has a 15% chance, and he does this giant Darius dunk. If anybody plays League of Legends, you'll know exactly what that is. But he has this AoE whirlwind mechanic. Now that I say it out loud, very similar to Darius. But on Voroth in this game, it is a counter attack. I can't tell you how helpful that was for me leveling up and completing certain content. How absolutely amazing it is. Now, what makes him a little bit better in terms of like a reason that I will shout his name from the rooftops, his cost is only 16, so he's in a good place there. He has very good damage as well. But if you awaken him to 3, so let's say you were to get a few copies of him, triggering his Whirlwind Slash, which is his counter attack, restores HP by 5%. So now one of his biggest weaknesses of being a fighter and taking a lot of damage, he now can start restoring health, which is brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. Next, we have Selkath. Again, Selkath is heavily reviewed on our channel. There's a more in-depth video, so that might also be in the description as well. Selkath is an esoteric mage. He is pretty decent. I enjoy him thoroughly. With that being said, I want to point out, and I go into more details in the video about this. He's an AoE mage, so this 3500 attack, it is good. Obviously, it's not that Voroth that we just looked at, but Selkath's an AoE mage. His attack interval is a bit on the slower side, so that is one inherent weakness. The bigger weakness that he has, he's got this really cool mechanic where he fires a bubble, and the bubble does bounce from target to target, and it can bounce to the same target, despite what this description says. I think it's the enchanted bubble itself says it will not hit the same target. It does. I don't know why it says that. Maybe it's a glitch or something. Who knows? Anyways, he's a great champion. His bubble animation is very slow. When he fires out this bubble, it travels at a snail's pace before hitting the target and then ricocheting. This also means that as that slow-moving bubble is encroaching on your enemy, which is not necessarily great in this game. This game does have some tight time frame windows. But let's say you have Voroth, and Voroth kills the target. That bubble does not heat seek out to the next target. It goes to that dead target and then just disappears. So unfortunately, Selkath's damage can often drop. However, if you are to get Selkath, and let's say you are a newer account, he is a good champion. He is not bad. I just want to warn, there are times where his damage drops compared to somebody like Voroth. Now, who do I feel like is better between Voroth and Selkath? I hate to say this, I think that Selkath has much better stats, so as you hit the harder content, Selkath's value goes way up. Selkath's value into single targets is a lot better than Voltus. However, if I said Voroth earlier, I meant Voltus. Who do I think is better between Selkath and Voltus? Voltus, I would argue, is significantly more consistent, especially at being an AoE mage. Again, I say this because Selkath's damage drops are harmful. Like when they happen, it just sucks and you feel it and you notice it. I still think that he's a good champion. I like him a lot. So to quickly sing his praises, he has a bubble that can bounce from target to target. If there's only one target, it will bounce the second time onto the same target and it deals extra damage. That is very noticeable. It feels amazing. The longer it takes for his bubble to travel to the target, so that time frame that we were talking about, he does actually gain increased damage and increased AoE damage from the explosion of his bubble. So it's not necessarily a terrible thing. However, if you're fighting faster things or if you don't have a tank out, there are times where that bubble has not reached its target and that target has ran into my base, and I've been annoyed about that. Finally, the biggest thing about him, he has an AoE attack speed steroid. So he gains 160 and then he gives 30 to everybody. 30 is not stupidly amazing. It does scale up from 30 to 70. So it becomes much more impressive. However, understand that there's certain champions where their awakening 4 is 25 attack speed. So him giving an AoE attack speed steroid to everybody in his range is very massive. There's plenty of content I've used him for, and I have loved his attack speed steroid heavily. So lastly, we have the two legendary champions. I'm going to cover the one that's in-game, and then we'll talk about the new one next. So the one is Calypso. Calypso is a late game champion, meaning that you want longer and longer amounts of time for her damage to scale up. Part of the reason of this is it's her one passive. The caster and Steelstone gain Eldritch God's Blessing every 35 seconds, triggering 2 hit combos on attacks for 6 seconds. And then you can reduce the cooldown, so from every 35 seconds down to every 25 seconds. For 6 seconds, it scales up to 10 seconds. Her Sealstone, so after 9 attacks, the next attack deals 150% damage. Each Sealstone increases the damage by 10%. So she gains these Sealstones from her ultimate, summons a Sealstone that deals damage equal to 20% of the attack to the target every time Calypso attacks. Up to 4 can exist at the same time. So this damage does scale up to 30, and then the rage requirement for it reduces down to 500. It's one of these things where it might not seem or sound like a lot of damage. However, the later that the game goes on, like when you get out your 4 seal stones, she is attacking quite a lot. She is doing a large amount of single target damage. Her cost is only 12, which is extremely cheap, meaning that if you want to, you could summon her early. Her attack stat is a bit low. I want to stress that. However, in terms of piercers, this is kind of right on par for most piercers. It's just slightly low, not significantly low for piercers. Her attack interval is one of the fastest. It is the fastest in the game. A lot of other champions do have a 2.0, so that's why I stuttered there. But her cost being 12 makes her extremely easy to summon out and get to that late game as quickly as possible. Understand, though, that majority of her damage comes from the amount of steel stones that she has out, and then after 9 attacks with a 9-second cooldown. So even if you increase her attack speed ridiculously fast, this is still on a 9-second cooldown. There's no stopping that specifically. It's just every 9 seconds, and I don't see something that reduces the 9-second up here. I do not have her, so I don't know if you skill her up, if this reduces that from, like, you know, at 8 attacks, and if that would work with that and scale down to 8 seconds. I do doubt it, though. Our final champion, and this is a champion I'm really excited about, but I think a lot of other players... She's not in the game yet. Well, that makes this a little bit more complicated. Well, now I don't know where I saw her at. This last champion, I don't know why she's underwater, because number one, she's infernal, which did not make a whole lot of sense to me. Can I look at her in guides? That's not useful. Oh no. What have I done? Alright, the last champion, Luna. I have screwed something up royally. Wait, I can just go back into this. I don't want to look at Falasha or Falsha. Why can I not find her? Guys, this is professional. Oh my gosh. All right. I can kind of just briefly describe her. I'm apparently having a tailspin moment. So ultimately, the way that this new healer works, grid pattern. She has the same grid pattern as this, except she is an AoE healer. She gets stacking healing multipliers as like her passive. That's her gimmick, is that the longer that she heals, the higher her healing multiplier gets. I remember specifically looking that her attack at 6-star is about 3,500, which is much higher than your Dolores or your Autumn. So what they have done is they have taken this grid pattern, you know, this snowflake, I guess you can call it. I don't know how you guys think of this pattern. They have made an actual healer for this pattern, and it scales up, and she gets extra healing multiplier once she hits like 25 heals in a row. So she should actually be putting out some huge AoE heals for what her kit does. I don't remember exactly what her ultimate does. I think it's just like extra healing, basically. But she is going to be a very good AoE healer for people who need that single area AoE healing. I don't think that she's going to replace Dolores, but what she might replace is certain champions like Aylin as an AoE healer in a small area. Aylin has her own very big usefulness. I'm not trying to say that she's going to replace her entirely. Each healer does seem to have a very specific strategic advantage to them. This is a champion like your Autumn, like your Dolores, Dolores, that she's going to AoE heal in that pattern for big numbers. This is not going to be a champion that's hitting for like, you know, the 1,000 that my Dolores is. I see this as a champion that's going to be healing for like 8,000 every second. The other very strange thing is majority of the healers have a 3-second attack interval. This specific one also had a 2-second attack interval. Dolores's, I'm a little confused about this because Dolores does a dance where she kind of heals like twice. Healing frequency will not be affected by attack speed. I didn't even notice that before. I've never read that. But Dolores kind of does 2 heals per animation. Maybe both of those heals are, like, one is a 2-second and then the next one is a 2-second. But yes, this new healer is in line with that, where she's going to be healing more quickly than your base 3-second healers. I did not see on her, the new champion, if the AoE healing is unaffected by attack speed. I've literally never paid attention to that. That explains a lot. What is weird, though, the new champion is Infernal, which isn't a bad thing. Like, having a healer in the Infernals is going to be nice. What's very strange about it to me is the design concept. Looks like she's like a worshiper of light. And by worshiper of light, I mean like your watch guards. And I get that the watch guards already have a healer or two, but her and Lightlock look like buddies, right? This looks like Lightlock's partner in holiness, not like a marriage partner, like a cohort, a colleague. There we go. Words are hard this morning. How do I feel about each of these champions? All of the champions, I think, again, I want to stress, depend on what you as the player specifically need. I just realized I could do this the whole freaking time. So receives 1 stack of Moonlight every second, stacking up to 50 times. So her healing multiplier percentage is increased. Her ultimate is, when triggered, increases the hero's healing multiplier by 70 and speeds up heals by 100% for 15 seconds. So she, I think, is going to be one of the best AoE healers in the game and put out some big, ridiculous numbers for sure. What I'm a little worried about is that additionally, allies in range will receive 10% less damage. I was about to say, I couldn't remember what her passive was, that because no healer in the game is just a straight healer. All of them have some other secondary effect, and I could not remember what hers was. So hers is damage reduction, so it is 15%, which I think with her good healing and the AoE aspect of her, she's going to be amazing. I think she looks beautiful. I'm not really into the blue. That's just not my color palette that I lean towards. But I think she looks amazing. Again, the only thing I think is weird is that she's Infernal. And like the Infernals needed a healer. They need a dedicated healer, not these AoE damage buffers. I don't disagree with her being Infernal, but I do think that, like, if she was a Watcher and Infernal, it would make more sense thematically. I would have to read through her backstory. Do I think that these champions are worth pulling for you on a newer account? It depends if you need them, right? The drop rate has increased by 10 times. And again, I want to stress this very heavily for newer players. When it says that the drop rate has increased by 10 times, that does not mean that if you have a 1% chance to get this champion, you have a 10% chance to get this champion. The way that it works, and the game tells you in your summonings, that it is if you get an epic champion. These epic champions are 10% higher than normal. So let's say each of these champions, I'm going to make up a number, is 4%, right? A 10 times event means you have a 40% chance to get one of these champions when you get an epic. If you get a legendary, and let's say Calypso, her chance is like a 2% chance, you would have a 20% chance to get a Calypso. With this being said, do I think that this weekend is worth pulling for newer players? Not necessarily. And the reason I say that is because I tend to focus on, for new players, focus on ×2 events. ×2 events literally do say that when you open up a shard, you have double the chances of it being an epic champion compared to normal. And a lot of the epic champions, wrong thing. You have a 7.88% chance when pulling shards to get one of these champions, which I believe Voroth, Aveline, and Selkath will be in here. With that being said, double the chances of that would be 15%. That is going to be more beneficial for you cracking open shards. And then when we go to look at the legendary, by the way, the smaller chances for Lord champions. So if you're wondering why are these so much lower, which is also crazy that it's you have a less chance to get a Lord than a legendary champion, which is bonkers to me. For the other two champions, understand that, you know, you have a 0.04% chance to get a legendary and less than a 1% chance to get a normal legendary. Understand that during a ×2 event, going up to that 1% shaves you down from needing 200 summons down closer towards 100 summons, and then with your pity timer in there, it can be a bit better. Yeah, that is how I encourage players to pull. Now, if you specifically like the champions that we looked at, I do think that you're not going to do any wrong. And what I like about these 5 champions, it is one of every type of champion. We have a healer, we have an archer, we have a mage, we have a fighter, we have a tank. Depending on what your account needs, this could be very good for you. I would say the legendary marksman is probably, I don't want to say the weakest, but your account will already have an epic marksman on it. So for that reason, I would say that she's potentially the weakest of them. Some players might say Aveline, because you can fuse an epic tank. For that reason, I would kind of agree. I do like Aveline's high block chance, though. Her blocking 4 units, I think, is just very, very valuable. Potentially heavily overlooked as well. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this and me stumbling around to remember where I could look at the champion skills, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down below. If you want to hang out with us, I'm over at twitch.tv/sprinklebeard, and I stream every day, Sunday through Wednesday currently. This week I'm off of work, so I'll be streaming quite a bit over there. Come hang out. Until that next time, ta-ta.